few weeks ago, I got a text from a friend. Said, hey, we're working on remodeling our master bathroom and we need a nice vanity. Something to be able to help us out with? I said, sure, absolutely. What did you have in mind? She responded with the best detailed drawing of the vanity she wanted, all the measurements, the hardware, the whole 9 yards. She even included a little mock-up drawing of what the finished space would look like once they were done remodeling it. I said, absolutely, looks great, let's do it. Give me a few minutes to work out the details, and I'll get back to you. Let's get started. So, not unlike any other project that involves cabinet construction, we're starting this one off with a couple of sheets of plywood. In this case, poplar veneered plywood. Shout out to my buddy Hunter for helping me get this all back to the shop.
So, the first thing we're gonna do is break down some plywood. Not super fun, so let's go ahead and montage.
Okay, so we are on to the point where we're looking at how we're gonna bring the whole cabinet together. Instead of using pocket holes or dominoes, I thought it would be a good opportunity to challenge myself and do rabbets and dados. So we are all set up to cut our rabbets on the end all the way down. This will be a notched out groove that our side panel could sit into, and then we'll do dados all the way through for the vertical partitions and then wrap it up with another rabbet on the end. Let's get started.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Donnie, this is your first time doing rabbets or dados. Why would you do this on a client piece? Reasonable question, but in this case, this whole plywood carcass is going to get covered with a face frame, so it was a good opportunity to practice and see how the construction came together, but also be able to hide my mistakes if I had any.
All right, we got our rabbets cut, and now we're looking at where we want to lay out the lines for our dados. Basically, what I've done here is mocked up what the front of the vanity will look like. We have our cabinet. This will be a set of drawers, cabinet, cabinet, drawers, cabinet. Each one's gonna have an 1.5 inch divider in the middle, but they're gonna have a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood behind that divider, and the hinges and hardware are attached inside of there. So the question becomes, where exactly do I lay out the lines for my 3/4 inch sheet of plywood that I'm gonna run dados to drop in there as the vertical partitions? So I'm sure there's a math equation I could run to figure this out. I would rather just mock everything up with all the right measurements and then set my 1.5 inch face frames that we'll have, and then center my 3/4 inch plywood vertical partitions that we'll have to make up the carcass. Now I can go through and mark those out and then set up to cut my dados with the router.
Now, believe it or not, this idea actually worked out perfectly. I got my grooves routed, dropped my panels in, and the fit was a little loose, but once I got some glue in there, it was totally sheared up and ready to go. And man, watching this footage, it really is true. Woodworkers can never have too many clamps. I used every clamp I owned to make sure this thing came together nice and tight with all the corners square. Once we got that figured out though, we could turn our attention to the face frame, which required milling up some poplar boards.
So the cabinet carcass is all glued up. Everything is square and looking good. Now we can start working on the face frame. Here are the boards I found. I spent a good amount of time hunting through the selection at the lumber yard because I wanted something that was clearly poplar, right? Like it's got some movement, but it's not overbearing. There's not like purples or greens. Like it's just a lot of really pretty, I guess kind of looks light green, but it will be brown, right? Like this will be a really, really pretty brown. I'll throw little box up here to show kind of what the we'll use my bed frame looked like initially, and then what it looked like after a couple months of browning. But this should be really, really pretty. And then I moved these boards around a good amount to kind of see where nice clean transitions would be, because we're going to do continuous grain across the whole front of the vanity.
I used my domino to help with alignment here. You could also use dowels or biscuits and they would do the exact same thing. Also, if you're still along for the ride and you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. That'll let you know anytime I post a new video, and it really helps me out. Thanks, guys. Once I got everything clamped up, I could leave it to cure overnight. The next day we could break out the sander and start with 80 grit to kind of smooth out that surface and work our way up to the grits on the face frame panel. Then I could turn my attention over to the carcass and go ahead and get that sanded before we had doors and drawers in our way, get everything nice and smooth ahead of time. So the goal for this vanity is to have a continuous grain pattern all the way across the front. We mentioned that before. So in order to make that be the star of the show, I made our face frame out of poplar as well, but I picked a board that was very, very dull, did not have a lot of movement, kind of just a blank face frame. That way the continuous grain would really stand out on the cabinet doors and drawer faces. I know a lot of guys when they're doing face frames will make the entire face frame assembled and then attach it to the carcass. With this one having so many different compartments and so many different pieces, I thought it would just be easier to go through piece by piece, cutting them to fit and doing it slowly, since it's just me doing it and I don't have an extra set of hands. Once I had the face frame on there and drying, I could turn my attention to the drawer boxes and start getting those made. All of my drawer boxes here are getting made out of 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood. I cut all the pieces to width and then cross-cut them to length using my Rockler cross-cut sled. This thing has come in such handy. I'll leave a link to it down below if you're interested in it. Once I have everything made, I set up the dado stack to rip a 1/2-inch groove in the bottom of each panel. That way we can drop in our base panel before getting things glued up and brad nail tight. The brad nails are just to hold it together. The glue is going to provide the strength here. And our drawers are oriented in such a way that when you pull on the front, you're pulling against the nails, not with them. So there should be no issue with these lasting a very long time. With our drawers installed, we could turn our attention back to that continuous grain panel and start getting things cut to fit each individual compartment. This is where we ran into some big issues.
So working on the vanity, and we just ran into a huge bummer.
So things are coming along really well. I was getting the door faces. This is actually a drawer. There's drawers behind that one and behind that one. I was getting them attached and getting the spacing figured out, and I was cutting them. I mean, it's in theory about 10 inches, but some of them vary here and there based on how the trim's attached. So I was cutting them to fit each individual piece, and the goal was to have continuous grain on the wood panels all the way across. And I accidentally mixed up this panel. So I cut it to fit this hole and then realized that it needed to go there. And as you can see, we have a nice big line, way too big of a reveal. And because it's continuous grain and these are unique boards, which makes all of these useless, and I got to take these all out probably tomorrow night and go out and buy more and make new panels. I don't really see a way around it.
Now this bonehead mistake did take me about 3 hours to correct, but I'll speed it up. That way it only takes you guys about 10 seconds. Let's see, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of recycled footage, some dominoes, some glue, some clamping, and we're back where we started.
After doing everything over a second time. I am really happy with how this is looking. All of the cabinet doors are attached. I have little tabbies here so I can open and close them because I don't have handles yet. Faces are just sitting in there right now. I don't have the right size screw to lock them in. But yeah, everything is attached. This one needs tweaked a little bit still, but that's easy adjustment with the hinges. Really, really happy with how the continuous grain and the reveals look primo.
All right, with that crisis averted, we could start attaching the face frames to our drawer fronts. I went ahead and pre-drilled and pre-attached some of the screws. They're not driven all the way in, they're just connected. That way I could put some hot glue on the drawer face itself, then set the panel in place with the spacer at the bottom and drive those screws in from the back once I push the drawer forward. To be clear, no, these two drawers are not going to always be connected. I just wanted to do them this way, get everything attached, then take both of the banks of drawers out of the cabinet, set them down, and cut through them at the same lines. That way, when you looked at it from a distance, all of the gaps are exactly consistent between all 6 drawers. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, keep on watching. On a quick note, this is a bathroom vanity, which does mean we'll have to route plumbing in the back. So the top 2 drawers and both drawer banks are false fronts. In order to attach that, I just took a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood, pocket holed that into the carcass, and then I could attach the face frame and the handle to that scrap piece. Speaking of the handles, I wanted all of mine to be consistent and even layouts, so I made a quick little jig, making sure that the handle fit, and used that to attach all of them. Because of the spacing, the holes that I originally used for the cabinet faces would not have landed in the middle of the drawer faces. So a quick fix, I just remeasured, got the middle measurement of the drawer, pre-drilled the holes in line with the original holes because that's the handle spacing, and that worked to attach the hardware to the drawer faces. I ran into a similar issue of spacing for those top cabinet faces because the reference was the top of the cabinet, not the top of the drawer. I just remeasured, drilled again, and that worked out just fine. Now, because I'm not finishing or installing this piece is done. The couple who needed this vanity or remodeling their master bathroom, unfortunately it's not done yet, but when it is, I'll be sure to post updated pictures to my Instagram, so if you're not following me there, be sure to go check it out. Until next time, get out there and build your own project.